We'll get through this.
I know. Together.
Always.
The wind in Wyoming did not whisper. It cut across the plains like a jagged blade, stripping dust from the earth and memories from any man foolish enough to return. Caleb Montgomery felt it claw at his coat as he rode toward the Double M Ranch. For the first time in 10 long years, he came back for one reason: to bury a father who had never truly loved him, and to sell the broken land that had taken more from the Montgomery family than it had ever given. Yet as Jericho, his rangy brown stallion, crested the last ridge, Caleb felt something stirring beneath his ribs, something darker than fear or sorrow, something unfinished. The land below looked like an open wound on the earth. The once white ranch house sagged, leaning into itself. Broken fences scattered across the yard, and the windmill screamed with each jagged turn. Weeds choked the yard, suffocating the paths he had once known. This land had raised him. It had ruined him. And still, he was tethered to it in ways he could not shake. Caleb dismounted slowly, letting his boots sink into the dust and grit. The silence wasn't peace. It was the hollow stillness of a home left to rot too long. He stepped onto the porch. His boots thudded against warped boards, stirring clouds of old dust. He pushed the front door, expecting emptiness. Instead, a faint scent of lavender drifted out, curling around his senses. Caleb's hand fell to the grip of his Colt. That scent, he hadn't smelled it in 10 years. It belonged to a memory he had long tried to bury. Before he could call out, a shadow moved inside the parlor. A woman stepped into the afternoon sun, and Caleb froze. Her black mourning dress concealed the curves he had once memorized. But nothing could hide her eyes, green, sharp, guarded, alive with anger. Lena Bishop, the girl he had once loved, the woman who had broken him without ever knowing. She leveled a loaded shotgun at his chest. "You're trespassing," she said, steady as iron. Caleb's breath caught, 10 years of dust and heartbreak rising in his throat. "Lorena," he whispered. She did not blink. "State your business." "My business is standing on my own land." Her jaw tightened, but her hands trembled ever so slightly. "Your father is dead." "We buried him 3 days ago." "You weren't here. I was 3 states away when the telegram came." Caleb's voice was low, rough. "Now put the gun down. I'm not here to harm you." "I don't know who you are anymore," she shot back. "The Caleb I knew wouldn't have abandoned his father. That man made his choices and I made mine," Caleb said, voice hardening. "But the law still stands. I'm the heir." "Why are you here, Lorena?" "Did your husband send you to settle one of my father's debts?" Something inside her fractured. The shotgun lowered an inch. "Jedediah is dead," she whispered. "He died last winter." Caleb blinked, shock washing over him. "I didn't know." "I'm sorry." "He was a good man." Her gaze drifted to his boots, the dust on his coat. "As for why I'm here, I live here now." Caleb's chest tightened. "You what?" "I moved in 6 months. Ago to care for Elias when he could no longer stand without a cane. He was sick. He was alone." Caleb's mind spun. His father had let her in. Elias Montgomery, who had hated everyone, had trusted Lena. "Why?" he asked, almost inaudibly. She didn't answer with words. Instead, she crossed the room, opened Elias's old desk drawer, and pulled out a thick envelope sealed in red wax. "Your father changed his will 2 weeks before he died," she said. "Read it." Caleb's hands shook as he broke the seal. The paper smelled of old ink, legal weight. He scanned the lines until a sentence stopped him cold. "To my estranged son, Caleb Montgomery, and to my caretaker, Lena Bishop, provided they both reside on and work the land together for 1 full year." Caleb looked up, disbelief clawing at him. "He shackled us together?" "Exactly," Lena said softly. "He knew you'd run, and he knew I had nowhere else to go." Caleb stared at the woman he had once loved, at the ranch that held every ghost of his past, at the will that trapped them both in a cage built by a dead man's pride. "I'll contest it," he growled. "You can try," she replied quietly. "But the bank is coming for inspection on Friday. They will foreclose if we're not ready." She stepped closer, close enough for him to see the tired lines near her eyes, close enough for the lavender to wrap around him again. "You ran once," she whispered. "Are you going to run again, or are you going to stay and fight?" The wind rattled the broken shutters, the house groaning under its own decay. For the first time in 10 years, Caleb Montgomery didn't know which way to run. He did not sleep that night. Every gust rattled the walls, every shadow pressed closer. Lena moved through the kitchen at dawn as if she had always lived there. The smell of coffee curled around him. Strange, familiar, dangerous. "I'm going to town," Caleb said, strapping on his colt. "I need to know if this will is real." "It is," Lena replied. "Go see for yourself." She didn't stop him. She didn't beg him to stay. She stood steady, arms crossed, like a fence post bracing against a storm. Caleb didn't know whether to admire her or curse her. The ride to Purgatory Creek blurred into dust and heat and anger. The town hadn't changed. People stared at him as though he were a ghost risen from old regret. He tied Jericho outside the lawyer's office and strode in without knocking. Judge Thaddeus O'Malley looked up from his desk, blinking like a startled owl. "Caleb Montgomery, my condolences. Is the will real?" Caleb slammed the paper on the desk. "Confirm it." The judge read slowly, lips moving over each line. Finally, he nodded. "Your father meant every word." "Why her?" Caleb demanded. "Why Lena Bishop?" O'Malley sighed. "She cared for him when no one else would. She gave him company. She kept him alive longer than he deserved. He trusted her." Caleb didn't know what hurt more, the truth or the injustice. "And Hayes?" he asked quietly. "Does he know?" "He knows," O'Malley said, lowering his voice. "He expected the ranch the moment Elias died. You'll return and that will ruin his plans." Caleb's stomach tightened. Hayes wasn't a man who took disappointment lightly. "Watch yourself," O'Malley warned. "He's got a new foreman, a gun hand named Vargo, mean as a rattler." Caleb left town with a chill crawling up his spine. Something dark was already moving across the valley. By sunset, the ranch appeared beneath the Tetons, battered and weary. Lena stood on the porch, hammer in hand, fixing a broken window. "What happened?" Caleb asked. "Visitor," she said. She pointed to the tracks circling the barn. "Someone's been watching." Caleb clenched his jaw. "Hayes sent them." Her eyes darkened. "There's something else." She crossed to a table and unwrapped a cloth bundle. Inside lay a chunk of quartz streaked with gold. "Is that real?" Caleb asked. "Elias found it in the creek 3 years ago," Lena said softly. "He wasn't digging for water. He was searching for the gold source." Caleb ran his thumb across the heavy nugget, the metal gleaming even in dim light. "If Hayes knows, he'll never stop," she finished. Before Caleb could respond, a bullet shattered the kitchen window. Lena screamed and dropped to the floor. Caleb shoved her behind the table as another shot tore through the wall. Glass exploded around them. "Hi, Cruel." "Welcome home, Cowboy," a voice called from the yard. "Vargo." Caleb peeked through the broken window. Shadows moved across the yard, one climbing the porch. "They want us out," he said. Lena crawled to the corner, shotgun in hand. "Is it loaded?" Caleb asked. "Buckshot in both barrels," she replied. "Good. Watch the back door." "If it opens, fire." Caleb fired 3 quick shots through the front window. One man fell, but more pressed in, surrounding the house. "Burn it," Vargo roared. "Smoke them out." Caleb's blood ran cold. Fire was death in a drought. "We have to move," he urged. "The storm shelter, go." Lena scrambled to the pantry. Caleb covered her, firing until the attackers clicked empty. She yanked open a trap door hidden under a rug. "You first," she whispered. Caleb shook his head. "You go down. Save the gold. Save the ranch." She hesitated, then heaved herself into the black hole. Caleb followed, slamming the door shut as glass shattered above. Flames consumed the parlor, boots thundered, furniture splintered. Dust fell like rain from the ceiling. "They won't stop," Lena whispered. "No," Caleb said quietly. "They won't." Time dragged, thick and suffocating. Finally, the attackers retreated. Caleb held Lena close until her trembling eased. "Elias wasn't trying to hurt you," she whispered. "He wanted to fix what was broken. He wanted us to have a chance." Caleb's chest tightened. "Why stay with him? Why care for a man who hated you?" She swallowed hard. "Because he was the only link I had left to you." The darkness surrounded them. At dawn, they emerged to a ruined kitchen, a house barely standing. Lena brewed coffee like a quiet declaration of defiance. Caleb holstered his Colt. "I'm going to town," he said. "Be careful," she whispered. "Hayes won't rest now." Caleb touched the brim of his hat, riding out into a storm gathering behind his ribs. The night attack had changed everything. Hayes wasn't waiting for the law. He was taking the ranch piece by piece, starting with fear and ending with fire. Caleb rode into purgatory, creek with a storm pressing behind his shoulders, every muscle taut with anticipation. The night's chaos had shifted something inside him: anger, determination, a grim understanding that Hayes didn't play by law. He pushed open the double doors of Hayes's bank without knocking. The room froze. Clerks stopped rustling papers, pens hovered mid-air. Browen Hayes stepped down from his balcony office, draped in a fine gray suit that did nothing to hide the rot beneath his polished smile. "Caleb Montgomery," he purred, eyes glinting. "I wondered when you'd show up." Caleb didn't waste a second. "Call off Vargo," he demanded. Hayes's smile widened, dangerous. "My foreman?" "He's a bit enthusiastic, but loyal." "Whatever happened out there? A misunderstanding, I'm sure." Caleb's teeth ground together. "That's no misunderstanding. He tried to burn my house." Hayes leaned closer, a serpent coiling around him. "Let me give you advice. Sell the ranch. Take the money. Leave this valley before something unfortunate happens to you or that widow lingering on your porch." Caleb didn't think. He lunged forward, grabbing Hayes by the lapels and slamming him against the teller's cage. Coins rattled in their drawers. "You touch her," Caleb growled, "and I'll bury you myself." "Sheriff!" Hayes shouted. Sheriff Taggart appeared, weary eyes avoiding Caleb's glare. "Let him go," the sheriff said quietly. Caleb released Hayes with disgust, stepping back. The entire town seemed to watch him like he carried death on his boots. He wasn't afraid anymore. Not for Lena, not for the ranch, not for himself. He bought lumber, nails, ammunition, and supplies with the last of his money. While loading the wagon, a familiar voice called out, "Easy, son. You look ready to shoot the sunshine." Caleb turned. Jubal, older, rougher, with a grin as wide as a canyon, leaned on a fence. "You always show up when trouble thickens," Caleb said. "And you always jump in head first," Jubal replied. "Heard about your little disagreement with Hayes. You're going to need help." "I can't pay you," Caleb warned. "Didn't ask for pay. Hayes took my brother's farm last year. I owe him one." Caleb nodded. Jubal climbed onto the wagon beside him. Together, they rode back through fading light. At the ranch, Lena stood on the porch, hair loose, hammer in hand. "You old goat," she called. "I thought you died." "Too stubborn," Jubal replied. "Now move aside, miss. I'm here to work." Night settled. Over the ruined house, Jubal took the barn watch. Caleb found Lena at the porch edge, arms crossed against the chill. "You went to town," she said softly. "What did Hayes want?" "Us to run," Caleb replied. "He'll make sure it happens one way or another." Lena didn't flinch. "I asked around today," Caleb continued. "About Jedediah." Her shoulders stiffened. "And what did they say?" "That he bought out your father's debts and used you as a bargaining chip." Lena's breath hitched. "Is that what you think? That I married him for money?" "I don't know what to think," Caleb admitted. "I wrote you every week for a year. Saved money to send for you. Then one day I got a letter saying you were married." Her eyes widened, shock and pain mingling. "You wrote?" "Caleb, I never saw a single letter." "I wrote dozens to the house in Abilene," he said. "I never left that porch for 6 months," she whispered, tears slipping. "Every day I waited. Not one letter came." Caleb's heart dropped. "Someone intercepted them." Lena's voice was soft, broken. "My father. He sold me to Jedediah, but he wanted me to believe you abandoned me first." Caleb stepped closer, anger and sorrow twisting him. "I never stopped loving you." Even as he spoke, tears slid down Lena's cheeks. "I never stopped either," she said. Their lips met, fierce, desperate, tender. 10 years of heartbreak pulled them together like magnets. The moment shattered with the thunder of riders across the lower pasture. Jubal's voice cut through the night. "Riders, fast!" Caleb and Lena broke apart. The fleeting reunion vanished into the cold reality of war. They ran inside. From the dark parlor window, torches swept across the land. Gunshots cracked the distance. Cattle screamed, hooves thundered. "They're stampeding the herd," Jubal growled. "Every last one," Caleb said. "They don't need to kill us. If they take the cattle, the ranch shows no profit. The bank forecloses." Lena's face stiffened. "Hayes is destroying us without pulling a trigger." By dawn, the herd was gone. The ranch was worthless on paper, but the gold remained. Around the kitchen table, the three of them laid out a map. The air thick with coffee and defeat. "We have 3 days until inspection," Lena said. "Without the herd, we fail," Caleb said. "The nuggets," Jubal added. "5 worth. Can't cash them here. Hayes will seize them." "You take it to Cheyenne Federal Assay Office," Caleb said. "Only safe place." "Then we ride to Cheyenne," he continued. That night, they packed the wagon under a moonless sky. Caleb taught Lena to shoot his Colt behind the barn. Her hands trembled at first, but by sunset, she hit targets clean. "Not bad," he murmured. "We're fighting for our home," she said. "I can't afford to miss." The trail to Cheyenne cut through Black Rock Canyon, a narrow pass with sheer walls rising like prison gates. Halfway through, Caleb froze. A pine tree. "Across the trail," he shouted. "A trap!" Rifle fire erupted from the ridges. Bullets kicked dirt. Horses screamed. The wagon lurched. Riders blocked the rear trail. Vargo's voice echoed, cruel and triumphant. "End of the trail, cowboy." Caleb's eyes darted. A steep slope offered a perilous chance. "Jericho can climb. The wagon can't. You take the gold. Get to Cheyenne." "No, I'm not leaving you," Lena cried. "You have to," he insisted. "Save the ranch. Save us." He lifted her onto Jericho, slapped the horse, and it bolted up the slope. Bullets chased them, sparks kicking from rock. Caleb took cover behind the wagon, firing, drawing attention. He saw Lena crest the ridge, then disappear. Relief washed through him. Then a rifle butt slammed into his skull. Darkness claimed him. When he awoke, Caleb was tied to a chair in his own parlor. Hayes sat across from him, calm as a preacher on Sunday. "You think I want your gold?" Hayes asked. "I want the railroad money. The new spur line needs water rights. Your land is worth a fortune." Caleb stared. It had never been about cattle, never about gold. Hayes wanted an empire. "Sign the deed," Hayes demanded. "Live or refuse, and Vargo finishes you." Caleb's eyes flicked to the window. A flash of sunlight reflected from a ridge, a rifle signal. She had returned. "Fine," he said slowly. "Give me the pen." Hayes leaned forward. A rifle shot tore through the window. Vargo toppled, screaming. Caleb surged out of the chair, slammed Hayes into the wall. The deed spilled ink across the floor. The front door burst open. Lena stood there, Winchester raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "Drop the gun, Hayes," she said, voice steady as bedrock. Sheriff Taggart arrived minutes later. Vargo, terrified and bleeding, confessed everything. The hidden map confirmed Hayes's scheme. 3 days later, Caleb and Lena returned from Cheyenne. Lean but victorious, a new contract in hand. The ranch was safe. That evening, the sky burned soft orange over the Tetons. Lena stood on the porch, watching the wind weave through the grass. Caleb wrapped his arms around her from behind. "You staying this time?" she asked. Caleb kissed her hair. "I'm done running. I'm home." The Double M stood behind them, not a ruin, but a beginning. A place built not by gold, land, or law, but by a love strong enough to survive the West itself. The next morning, the ranch stirred to life slowly, like a wounded animal testing its strength. Sunlight glinted off broken boards, catching the dust motes floating in the cool Wyoming air. Caleb walked among the ruined fences, tracing the lines of the land he had once dreamed of leaving forever. Each step carried memories of a childhood that had been harsh, of a father's bitter pride, and of the love he had once lost and now reclaimed. Lena followed silently, her hands working the ropes and hammers, but her eyes never left him. "We need a plan," Caleb said finally, voice low, carrying the weight of the night's chaos. "The bank inspector comes in 2 days. We have to make it look like the ranch is still functional, or at least salvage what we can." Lena nodded, already thinking ahead. "I'll start with the barn. The roof's half caved, but the cattle pens are intact. If we can patch it, it might look operational enough." Caleb's gaze swept over the yard. Broken tools, splintered wood, the remnants of what had been a home. They were a monument to everything that had been lost. Yet there was a stubborn heartbeat in the land, a pulse that refused to die. "We'll need Jubal," he said, glancing at the barn. "He knows what he's doing." "Then let's get to work," Lena replied, determination hardening her features. Together they began to organize the wreckage, turning chaos into method, destruction into strategy. By mid-morning, the air was thick with sawdust and the scent of fresh-cut wood. Jubal arrived, carrying tools and a weathered grin. "Heard the herd ran off," he said. "Figured I'd lend a hand before the inspector shows up. Hayes won't know what hit him." Caleb handed him a hammer. "We're going to patch the roof, rebuild the fences, and make this place look alive again." Jubal set to work without complaint. Lena worked beside him, hammering boards, tying posts, sweat beading on her brow. Caleb moved between them, repairing, organizing, planning. For the first time in years, he felt the rhythm of the ranch beneath his hands and boots, a rhythm he had once taken for granted. By afternoon, the first signs of life emerged. Patches of the barn roof were replaced. Fences had been mended, gates rehung. Though the yard was still littered with debris, it looked like a home that was not quite defeated. Lena paused, wiping her hands, surveying their progress. "We can do this," she said quietly. "If we work together, we can make it through inspection." Caleb's jaw tightened. "We have to," he said. "Hayes won't stop, not until he owns this land. Not until he crushes everything in his path." Jubal chuckled, leaning on a post. "Good thing he doesn't know how stubborn we can be." The night fell quietly, but the stars were distant, cold witnesses. Caleb and Lena stood on the porch, looking out across the darkened fields. "We're not safe yet," Caleb said. "They'll be back. Hayes won't give up until he gets what he wants." Lena turned to him, eyes fierce in the moonlight. "Then we fight. For the ranch, for us, for everything your father tried to protect, even if he did it in the wrong way." Caleb reached for her hand. "I'm done running," he said again, the promise heavy in his voice. The following day, Caleb rode into town once more, scouting for information about Hayes and his men. Every eye in Purgatory Creek followed him, whispers drifting through the streets like smoke. He learned that Vargo had returned to Hayes with reports of their movements, and that Hayes was amassing more men, preparing for another strike. Every step of the way, Caleb felt the tension coil in his chest, a reminder that the West did not forgive weakness. Returning to the ranch, he found Lena in the barn, tending to a small fire and cleaning weapons. "You were gone longer than I expected," she said. "What did you find out?" "Hayes is planning to hit us again," Caleb said. "More men, better armed, and he's not just after the ranch this time. He wants us broken, mentally, financially, emotionally. He wants fear to own us." Lena's eyes darkened. "Then we'll give him something else, courage, and a hell of a fight." They spent the evening preparing, reinforcing doors, hiding the gold, and setting traps around the property. The wind moaned through the broken windows, carrying the scent of dust and rain, a reminder that the land itself was their ally and their challenge. As night deepened, Caleb and Lena sat by the fire, exhaustion pressing against their bones. "You never leave me anymore," Lena said softly. "Promise me you won't." Caleb pulled her close. "I won't, not this time. Not ever." Their moment was interrupted by the faint sound of hooves in the distance. Caleb stiffened, listening. Lena moved beside him, Colt ready in hand. "Riders," she whispered. Through the darkness, silhouettes emerged, moving with purpose. Caleb recognized the shapes instantly. Vargo's men, sent to scout to intimidate. They dismounted at the edge of the pasture, eyes searching, weapons ready. Caleb and Lena moved silently, slipping into shadows, using the ruined terrain to their advantage. They waited, hearts pounding as the riders spread across the land. Then, in a sudden surge, they struck. Caleb firing from cover, Lena cutting down the rear scouts. Chaos erupted under the moonless sky. The night alive with the crack of gunfire and the screams of startled men. The battle was swift, brutal, and precise. Caleb's years of survival instincts, Lena's newfound skill with the Colt, and Jubal's experience created a deadly synergy. By the time the last rider fled into the darkness, the ranch stood, scarred, battered, but undefeated. As dawn broke over the Tetons, the wind carried the smell of gunpowder and sweat across the fields. Caleb and Lena surveyed the aftermath. silence stretching between them like a fragile thread. "We survived," Lena said softly, leaning against him. "For now," Caleb replied. "But Hayes isn't done. He'll come back stronger, and we'll be ready." They returned to the house, beginning the painstaking process of repair once more. Boards were replaced, windows patched, and the gold hidden in safer, more secretive locations. The rhythm of work, the sound of hammer on nail, the smell of fresh wood, brought them closer, each shared task a stitch in the fragile fabric of their renewed trust and partnership. Jubal worked alongside them, grumbling about his aching back but refusing to leave until the work was done. "We'll show Hayes," he said, voice low and steady, "that you can't bully the Montgomerys out of their home." Night fell again, quiet this time, though the threat of haze loomed like a shadow over the valley. Caleb and Lena sat together on the porch, listening to the wind twist through the Tetons, sharing stories of what had been and what could be. They spoke in soft tones, laughter mingling with the ache of loss and the thrill of survival. And beneath it all, the ranch, battered and scarred, breathed with them, alive with memory, alive with hope, alive with the promise that some things, no matter how broken, could be rebuilt. The sun rose over the Tetons in pale streaks of gold, brushing the ridges with light that made the snow sparkle and the valley glow faintly. Caleb and Lena moved through the remnants of the Double M, the house still scarred from fire and bullets, yet alive with stubborn defiance. The night had left its marks, splintered boards, scorched walls, shattered windows, but the spirit of the land endured. Each step they took was measured, deliberate, a silent vow that they would reclaim what was theirs. Caleb's eyes swept the yard, scanning for signs of recent disturbance. Tracks from Vargo's men were still faint in the dirt, but the gold was safe, hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the pantry. Lena carried tools and supplies, her movements precise and calm, a stark contrast to the whirlwind of chaos they had endured. For the first time in years, Caleb felt that the land itself was on their side, whispering promises of survival, endurance, and quiet triumph. "We have to get this place ready for inspection," Caleb said, voice low, steady. "Boards replaced, fences repaired, barns patched. The bank will be here in less than 2 days. Hayes is going to try one last time, mark my words." Lena didn't flinch. "Then we'll be ready. We've survived worse." Her voice carried the edge of steel beneath its warmth. Jubal, perched atop a half-rebuilt fence, nodded. "That's right. Hayes underestimates the stubbornness of men who fight for their home. We'll show him." The trio worked tirelessly. Each hammer strike, each measured cut, each repaired board a battle won before the real war came. Sweat and dust coated their faces, muscles burned. But the rhythm of rebuilding created a strange serenity, a harmony between past and future, pain and hope. By mid-afternoon, the first signs of recovery appeared. The barn roof was patched enough to hold against wind. Fences stretched across the pasture, holding what little cattle remained. Paths were cleared, and the kitchen, though scarred, was functional. Each small victory was a testament to endurance, a silent rebuke to Hayes's ruthless plans. As evening fell, the wind shifted, carrying with it the distant thunder of hooves. Caleb's hand went to his Colt. Lena's eyes hardened. "Riders," she whispered. They moved quickly, silently, to positions they had scouted. Shadows danced across the fields as Hayes's men approached, unaware that they were stepping into a trap meticulously prepared over hours. Caleb fired from the shadows, the sharp report of his Colt cutting through the night. Lena covered the rear, precise and deadly. Jubal flanked the north edge, controlling the high ground. The battle was brutal, tense, and swift. Bullets tore through the night. Hooves stamped against dirt, and men screamed as the trio fought with relentless precision. By the time the last man fell or fled, the ranch remained battered but undefeated, a fortress forged in fire, courage, and sheer willpower. Dawn broke, the first light spilling across broken fences, scorched walls, and dust-filled skies. Caleb and Lena stood side by side, surveying the quiet aftermath. "We did it," Lena whispered, leaning into him. "For now," Caleb replied, eyes scanning the horizon. "But Hayes isn't finished. He'll return stronger. We'll be ready." They turned back to the house, ready to continue the meticulous work of repair. Boards were replaced, windows patched, gold secured in hidden compartments. The Double M slowly transformed from a ruin into a home once more, alive with the sweat, blood, and determination of those who refused to let it die. Night fell again, quiet, peaceful in a tentative truce. Caleb and Lena sat on the porch, hands entwined, eyes tracing the silhouette of the Tetons against a sky, painted in deep purples and fading gold. Laughter mingled with the wind as they shared stories, small comforts and dreams for the future. They were bound together not just by circumstance or law, but by the endurance of the heart. The land breathed with them, a living testament to resilience. Though scarred, though tested by fire, bullets, and greed, the Double M stood strong. And Caleb Montgomery, once a man who had run from every pain, every memory, now knew the value of standing, of fighting, of returning home. Lena's voice broke the quiet. "You're staying this time?" Caleb kissed her hair, the wind carrying their shared resolve across the valley. "I'm done running. I'm home." The Double M rose behind them, not merely a structure, but a symbol. Not built by gold, law, or luck, but by courage, love, and the indomitable spirit of the West itself. The ranch, once a ruin, had become a beginning, and in its rebirth, Caleb and Lena found something more precious than gold: the enduring power of love, loyalty, and home.